Data and data analysis. Psychological research often requires a numerical and quantitative organization of results that they get from their findings. The results in question is called raw data. To categorize large findings in these scenarios, it is often mathematically simplified and visually represented via graphs. Quantitative data and qualitative data. The numerical results collected by psychologists is known as quantitative data. The data which is detailed and descriptive is called qualitative data. Quantitative data indicates the quantity of the psychological measure, i.e. the strength or amount of a response, and tends to be measured on scales, such as time, or as numeric score on tests such as personality, IQ, and TMACE tests. Quantitative data is associated with experiments and correlations which use numeric scales, but it is also possible to collect quantitative data from observations and interviews. Quantitative data. Strengths that usually uses objective measures and scales. They are reliable, can be tested repeatedly, aka replicated. Quicker to analyze statistically when there are large volumes of data involved, in terms of statistical comparison. Weaknesses. This method of data collection often limits responses, so there is an aspect of the findings being less valid and less representative. No explanation of why. Poor comprehension and interpretation of statistical data may lead to the poor application of this to practical effect in life. Large samples are needed for the findings to be generalizable. Strengths. Data is often valid because it is descriptive and detailed, not limited by fixed choices. Can often help researchers control certain variables by making them aware of it, for example, childhood, family, allowing them to estimate cause and effects. Data is more in-depth, which inhibits a more deeper understanding of the study. Qualitative data. Weaknesses. While estimating the mean, often information that is unnecessary but important may be ignored under the pretense of skimming/structuring data via taking out the aggregate, aka mean. It is subjective to the studies/experiments, cannot be usually generalized for the larger context. Data may have bias of both the participant and researcher. This may render data invalid. Difficult to statistically analyze and comprehend. Difficult to replicate without strict standardization and thus low reliability. Example. An example of quantitative data would be a total number of responses recorded of a certain behavior, such as a variation of facial expressions on a scale, during an interview. The sources of quantitative data are usually strictly objective, as the measure used, closed questionnaires, scales, etc., don't really need much interpretation. These measures are thus reliable. An example of qualitative data would be a verbal account of an incident that the participant gives in an interview. The data is more in-depth. This is gathered via open question questionnaires, interviews, and case studies. This, while does make the data subjective and difficult to interpret, it is still valid in terms of being accurate in the aim. Get complete notes in PDF and book form from our Amazon store. Link given in description.